Nolan squeezed the armrests as the ship shuddered, alarms blaring through the cockpit. Red warning lights flashed, illuminating the sweat beading on Jace's forehead as he desperately worked the controls. "We're losing power fast," Jace said, his voice strained. "That firefight with the Draconis scouts really did a number on us." Dr. Singh emerged from the rear compartment, her face pale. "The reactor's leaking radiation. We need to set down for repairs, now." Nolan pulled up the navigational charts, scanning for the nearest friendly outpost. "There's a space station not far from here. It's a bit of a dive, but they should have the parts we need." With a nod from Jace, Nolan plotted the course. The ship limped through space, its engines sputtering as they approached the sprawling patchwork station. Nolan guided the vessel into a docking bay, the landing struts groaning as they settled onto the scuffed deck. As the airlock hissed open, Nolan stepped out, his hand resting on the blaster at his hip. The station's interior was dimly lit, the air thick with the mingled scents of grease, sweat, and cheap alcohol. Jace and Dr. Singh followed close behind, their eyes darting warily. Nolan led them through the winding corridors, past dingy cantinas and shadowy alcoves. As they turned a corner, a gruff voice called out from the shadows. Well, if it isn't Nolan Briggs." Nolan spun, his blaster drawn, only to find himself facing a grizzled, heavily scarred man leaning against the wall. A flicker of recognition crossed Nolan's face. "Rorik, what the hell are you doing here?" The man chuckled, pushing off the wall. "I could ask you the same thing. Word is, you're on some kind of suicide mission." Nolan holstered his blaster, eyeing Rorik warily. "What's it to you?" Rorik glanced around, then leaned in close. "I might have something that could help. Information about that lost fleet you're chasing." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." "Not here," Rorik said, jerking his head toward a nearby doorway. "Come on." Nolan exchanged a glance with Jace and Dr. Singh before following Rorik into a small, cluttered room. The door slid shut behind them, and Rorik turned, his expression serious. "A while back I stumbled across an old data drive. It had partial coordinates pointing to some uncharted corner of space. Rumors say that's where the lost fleet vanished." Nolan leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Where's this data drive now?" Rorik grinned. "Safe and sound, but it'll cost you." "Name your price." "A cut of whatever treasure you find out there. Could be tech, could be something else. I want in." Nolan hesitated, then nodded. "Deal. Now let's see that data drive." As Rorik reached for a battered case, the door burst open. 3 figures stormed in, their faces hidden behind Draconis battle helmets. Nolan, Jace, and Dr. Singh dove for cover as blaster fire filled the room. Rorik cursed, tossing the case to Nolan. "Go! I'll hold them off!" Nolan caught the case, then signaled to Jace and Dr. Singh. They bolted from the room, racing through the station's labyrinthine corridors. Behind them, the sound of blaster fire and shouting grew closer. Jace skidded to a halt at a junction, his fingers flying over a wall-mounted control panel. "I'm going to try to hack the station's systems. Buy us some time." Nolan and Dr. Singh crouched behind a stack of crates, blasters drawn. The Draconis spies rounded the corner, their weapons raised. Nolan fired, dropping one of the pursuers. Dr. Singh's shot took down another. "Got it!" Jace yelled as the station's alarms began to blare. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, cutting off the remaining spy. They sprinted for the docking bay, firing over their shoulders as more Draconis reinforcements poured into the station. They leaped aboard their ship, Nolan punching the controls to seal the airlock. Jace slid into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the console. The engines roared to life, and the ship blasted out of the docking bay, narrowly evading the incoming fire from the station's turrets. As they sped away, Dr. Singh clutched the data drive case to her chest. "Let's hope this was worth it." Nolan nodded grimly. "It has to be. The fate of Earth depends on it." Dr. Singh connected the data drive to her console, her brow furrowed as she worked to decipher the ancient coordinates. "This is old, really old, but I think I can crack it." Hours passed as they flew through the void, putting distance between themselves and any potential Draconis pursuers. Finally, Dr. Singh sat back, a triumphant smile on her face. I've got it. The coordinates lead to a star system on the edge of known space. It looks like there was a human colony there, long abandoned. Nolan leaned over her shoulder, studying the readout. That must be where the fleet staged their operations. If we can find any clues there... It's a long shot, Jace said from the pilot's seat, but it's the best lead we've got. As they approached the planet, the ship's sensors detected faint energy signatures from the surface. They set down near the ruins of what appeared to have been a thriving settlement, now reclaimed by dense foliage and crumbling structures. Nolan led the way as they picked their way through the overgrown streets, their blasters at the ready. Dr. Singh scanned the ruins with a handheld device, searching for any signs of the lost fleet. I'm picking up something, she said, her voice tight with excitement. Underground, beneath that collapsed building. They dug through the rubble, revealing a hidden hatch. Nolan wrenched it open, and they descended into a cavernous hangar. In the center, illuminated by their flashlights, sat a battered ship bearing the faded insignia of the lost fleet. Inside the derelict vessel, they discovered a damaged AI system, its holographic projector flickering weakly. Dr. Singh set to work, her fingers flying over the ancient interface. As she worked, Nolan paced the hangar, his mind racing. If they could uncover the fleet's secrets, find some way to stop the Draconis invasion. A sudden burst of static from the ship's comm system made them jump. A garbled voice crackled through the speakers, barely intelligible. Zarda, closing in, must hurry. Nolan's blood ran cold. The Draconis commander was hot on their heels, determined to stop them at any cost. Dr. Singh looked up from her work, her face pale. I need more time. Just a little longer. Nolan and Jace exchanged a grim look. They knew what they had to do. As Dr. Singh worked feverishly to bring the AI back online, they took up defensive positions, ready to face whatever came through that hangar door. The AI sputtered to life, its holographic form coalescing above the projector. It spoke in a fractured, glitching voice, its words carrying the weight of long-lost secrets. Fleet hidden, coordinates locked, key to victory. Dr. Singh leaned forward, hope and desperation mingling in her eyes. Please, you must tell us. Where is the fleet? How do we find it? The AI flickered, its voice fading. The key lies with the guardian of the lost world. Seek the sentinel of Zion's gate. With a final burst of static, the AI winked out, leaving them in stunned silence. Dr. Singh turned to Nolan, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and purpose. We have to find this guardian, this sentinel. It may be our only hope of locating the fleet and stopping the Draconis. Nolan nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. Then that's what we'll do. Despite the toll, no matter the danger, we'll find a way. As they prepared to depart, the weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. Somewhere out there, the lost fleet waited, holding the key to humanity's salvation. And with the Draconis closing in, time was running out. Nolan, Jace, and Dr. Singh stepped out of the ancient ship, their eyes locked on the horizon. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever battles they would face, they knew one thing for certain. They would not rest until they had found the fleet and secured Earth's future once and for all. Dr. Singh's eyes lit up as she decrypted the final bits of data from the ancient AI. Nolan, I've got it. The Lost Fleet established a secret base on a rogue planetoid in an uncharted nebula at the edge of the galaxy. Nolan leaned in, studying the coordinates on her screen. Smart, a moving target in the middle of nowhere. Perfect place to hide while developing advanced tech. Not just any tech, Dr. Singh said, her voice hushed. The logs mention a weapon called the Infinity Cannon. It's capable of destroying entire planets. Jace whistled low. That could turn the tide against the Draconis. If we can find it, Nolan said. That nebula's way off the charts and Zartok's breathing down our necks. They plotted a course into the uncharted region, pushing their battered ship to its limits. As they neared the outer edge of known space, alarms blared. Draconis ships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons blazing. "Evasive maneuvers!" Nolan shouted as energy blasts rocked the ship. Jace's hands flew over the controls. "Hang on to something!" The ship dove and rolled, narrowly avoiding the barrage. A Draconis cruiser loomed ahead, cutting off their escape. "We're boxed in," Dr. Singh yelled. Jace gritted his teeth. "Not yet, we're not." He punched the throttle, aiming straight for the heart of the swirling nebula ahead. "Jace, what are you doing?" Nolan gripped his chair as the ship plunged into the roiling gases and stellar debris. "Losing them," Jace said, his eyes locked on the rapidly shifting obstacle course ahead. The ship lurched and groaned as Jace wove through the chaos, the pursuing Draconis vessels falling behind or smashing into debris. Finally, they emerged into a pocket of calm, their attackers left far behind. After days of searching, they found it, a planetoid drifting alone in the void. As they landed, Nolan's team entered the abandoned base with weapons drawn. They found long-dormant computer banks and scattered pieces of tech. "Look at this," Dr. Singh called out, projecting a hologram. "Schematics for the Infinity Cannon, but where's the actual weapon?" As they searched, a familiar voice rang out. "Looking for something?" Nolan spun to see Rorick step from the shadows, a Draconis blaster in his hand. "You led them here," Nolan spat. Rorick shrugged. "Nothing personal, just business." A firefight erupted. In the chaos, a stray shot hit a power conduit. The entire base shuddered as alarms blared. "The core's going critical," Dr. Singh shouted over the din. "We need to get out of here." They fought their way through the failing base, searching for an escape route as the tremors grew stronger. Just as hope seemed lost, Jace called out, "Over here, I found another hangar." They raced through the hidden passage to find an enormous cannon, the Lost Fleet's ultimate weapon. With no time to spare, they prepped it for launch. "Everyone in now," Nolan ordered as the base began to tear itself apart. They barely cleared the hangar as the planetoid exploded behind them in a blinding flash. When the light faded, Nolan and his exhausted crew found themselves drifting amidst the nebula's debris field, the Infinity Cannon secured to their ship. Nolan stared at the ancient weapon, equal parts awe and trepidation in his eyes. "Let's hope this thing works," he said quietly, "because now, it's all we've got." Nolan stared at the Infinity Cannon, its sleek form belying the immense power within. The fate of Earth now rested on this ancient weapon. Jace paced the length of the ship's bridge, his mind racing. "We need to strike now before the Draconis reach Earth," Jace said, his voice tight with urgency. "I say we take a small team, infiltrate their flagship, and deploy the cannon right in their faces." Nolan nodded, a grim smile on his face. "Crazy. I like it." As they plotted their bold strategy, Dr. Singh hunched over her console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. Data streams scrolled past her eyes as she delved deeper into the Infinity Cannon systems. "Almost there," she muttered, fatigue evident in her voice. "Just need to crack this last encryption layer." Aboard the Draconis flagship, Raxor paced the command deck. His claws clicked against the metal floor as he turned to his lieutenants. "Double the patrols, triple them. Those humans are out there, and they're planning something. I can feel it." The massive Draconis armada hung in the void of space, a sea of metal and weaponry poised to strike at the heart of humanity. As Nolan's ship drew near, they activated their stolen transponder codes. "This is it," Nolan said, his hand resting on Jace's shoulder. "You ready?" Jace grinned, though his eyes betrayed his nervousness. "Born ready, big brother." They boarded the stealth shuttle, the Infinity Cannon secured in a specially designed containment unit. As they approached the Draconis flagship, tension filled the cramped cockpit. "Unidentified vessel, state your purpose," a gruff voice crackled over the comm. Jace took a deep breath, then responded in flawless Draconis. "Supply run from Outpost 793, transmitting clearance codes now." Seconds stretched into eternity as they waited for a response. Finally, the voice returned. Codes accepted. Proceed to Hangar Bay 12. They landed without incident, the cavernous hangar bay dwarfing their small craft. As they disembarked, Nolan signaled to his team. They moved swiftly and silently through the corridors, guided by stolen schematics. Suddenly, alarms blared. Draconis security forces poured into the hallway, energy weapons blazing. Nolan and his team took cover, returning fire. "We've been made!" Jace shouted over the din of battle. "We need to move now!" They fought their way deeper into the ship, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. As they rounded a corner, a group of Draconis elite guards ambushed them. In the chaos, Jace was separated from the group. "Jace!" Nolan called out, his voice filled with panic. But his brother was gone, swallowed up by the labyrinthine corridors of the alien vessel. Torn between his mission and his brother, Nolan made a snap decision. "Sing, take half the team and get that cannon to the power core. I'm going after Jace." With precious time ticking away, Nolan led his rescue team through a gauntlet of Draconis defenses. They fought tooth and nail, desperation fueling their every move. Meanwhile, Dr. Singh and her team finally reached the central power core. As they prepared to deploy the Infinity Cannon, a chilling voice rang out. "I must commend you on your ingenuity, humans," Raxor said, stepping into view. Behind him stood dozens of Draconis warriors, weapons trained on Singh's team. "But did you really think we wouldn't anticipate your little ploy?" Nolan burst into the room, his face falling as he took in the scene. Raxor's lips curled into a cruel smile as he gestured to a bound and battered Jace, held at gunpoint by a Draconis guard. "Now, Nolan," Raxor said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "You have a choice to make. Give me the control codes for your weapon, or watch your brother die. The fate of your pathetic species hangs in the balance. What will it be?" Nolan's mind raced, the weight of an entire world pressing down upon him. His brother or his planet, his family or his species. An impossible choice with no right answer. "Tick-tock, human," Raxor taunted. "What's it going to be?" Nolan's fingers hovered over the firing controls, his breath ragged. He looked at Jace, bound and beaten, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding. With a shaky exhale, Nolan punched in the activation sequence. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. Jace nodded, a sad smile on his bruised face. "It's okay, big brother, for Earth." The Infinity Cannon hummed to life, its ancient circuitry glowing with otherworldly power. Raxor's guards lifted their weapons, aiming at Jace's head. Suddenly, Dr. Singh's voice cut through the tension. "Nolan, stop! The cannon's unstable!" Before Nolan could react, a violent tremor rocked the ship. Alarms blared as systems failed across the flagship. In the chaos, Nolan saw his chance. He lunged at the nearest guard, wrestling the alien's weapon away and firing at Jace's restraints. "Move!" Nolan shouted, pulling his brother to his feet. They sprinted through twisting corridors, dodging falling debris and panicked Draconis soldiers. The ship groaned and buckled around them. "What's happening?" Jace yelled over the din. "Singh overloaded our ship's core," Nolan explained, ducking under a sparking conduit. "It's our only shot." They rounded a corner and skidded to a halt. Zartok stood before them, flanked by his elite guard, blocking the path to the hangar. The Draconis commander's eyes narrowed. "Impressive, human," Zartok growled, "but futile." Nolan stepped forward, positioning himself between Jace and the aliens. "Let us go, Zartok. This ship's done for." Zartok studied them, his reptilian features unreadable. "Perhaps, but the Armada remains. Earth will fall with or without this vessel." He paused, then continued. "I offer you a choice, Nolan. Take your brother and flee, or stay and die for your doomed world." Nolan's mind raced. He turned to Jace, seeing the fear and purpose in his younger brother's eyes. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. "Jace," Nolan said softly, pulling him into a tight embrace. "It was an honor to fight beside you, brother." Before Jace could respond, Nolan shoved him hard, sending him stumbling through the hangar doors. With a swift motion, Nolan slammed the emergency release. The doors hissed shut as the hangar depressurized, ejecting Jace into space. No! Jace's anguished cry was cut off as his escape pod sealed, small thrusters firing to carry him away from the doomed flagship. Nolan turned back to Zartok, his expression resolute. Humanity will never surrender, no matter the odds. We'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees before alien oppressors. With a roar, Nolan charged. The hangar erupted into chaos as human and Draconis clashed in a brutal melee. Nolan fought like a man possessed, his fists and commandeered weapon a blur of motion. One by one, Zartok's warriors fell. Blood and sweat stung Nolan's eyes as he faced Zartok. The two circled each other on the lip of the open hangar, the void of space yawning behind them. They traded blows, neither willing to yield. A thunderous explosion rocked the ship. Nolan stumbled, nearly losing his footing. He looked up to see Zartok's claws slashing toward his face. At the last second, Nolan ducked and drove his shoulder into the alien's midsection. They grappled at the edge of oblivion, the battle raging around them forgotten. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Nolan twisted and hurled Zartok to the deck. The Draconis commander lay there, disarmed and beaten. To Nolan's surprise, he saw a glimmer of respect in the alien's eyes. The ship's reactor screamed, reaching critical mass. Nolan stood tall, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond the hangar's force field. Earth hung there, a blue jewel in the distance. He'd bought them time, however brief. As the flagship tore itself apart around him, Nolan allowed himself a small smile. They would not break. Humanity would endure. The reactor detonated, consuming the mighty vessel in a blinding flash. In its final moments, a message crackled across every Draconis frequency. We could not break the humans. They fought like cornered wolves to their last defiant breath. If such is the future that awaits us on their dirt planet, we will meet it with a fight to the bitter end.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.